Okay, let's get right into audience questions. The first one is about Mike Pence. David, would replacing Mike Pence help Donald Trump get reelected? Would it help him in the polls? So it's extremely unlikely that replacing Pence would help Trump, and it has the serious potential to hurt Donald Trump. And there's a few things you have to understand about VP picks. VP picks. The situation, the risk reward with a vice presidential pick is asymmetrical. And what I mean by that is a bad VP pick can hurt you much more than a good VP pick can help you, because a good VP pick essentially causes no drama, causes no scandals, stays out of the way, is a reasonably okay debater, so that in the not particularly a highly viewed vice presidential debate, they hold their own, and they essentially they know the talking points. They don't get hugely embarrassed. You know, Sarah Palin in her VP debate really didn't do well, but it still didn't really hurt McCain-Palin that much. I mean, it already wasn't going particularly well for them. But on the other hand, if you have a great VP, they don't do that much for you. And so that's why the asymmetrical nature to me would suggest that unless Pence is a problem for Trump, it's risky to replace him. And you also have to remember, replacing your VP is a sign that something is wrong. The very news of replacing the VP, if Trump were to do it, even if he takes Pence and replaces him with someone like equally okay, that could be a wash. But the news that there's chaos and disorganization with, we're days before the convention at this point, the Republican National Convention, that could actually hurt Donald Trump. And if we look at Pence specifically, you could also make the case that he's complementary to Trump in some way. I know that Trump now pretends to be religious, and he says when he was in his late 60s, he stopped being pro-choice, and now he's against abortion and all of this stuff. He reads the Bible. I don't believe any of it, but to the extent that anybody does or doesn't believe it, Mike Pence's evangelical credentials probably help Trump in some key states with the evangelical base, which, again, white evangelicals, we'll talk about this later, actually, white evangelicals tend to vote Republican. Would they be turned off from Trump if Pence wasn't there? I don't know. So to me, a bad VP can really be a problem, whereas a good VP just kind of keeps chugging along. Pence, in terms of demographics, could actually be good for Trump, and a replacement itself could signal trouble and could backfire. Now, the one thing I am interested in that's maybe a little bit different this time around is we are going to have a Democratic female VP candidate debating a white evangelical older male Republican in the VP debate. Now, if you think back to Palin versus Biden back in 2008, Sarah Palin is just not as quick or well-versed in policy or skilled at debating as is Kamala Harris. But the dynamics were where you had the Democratic white male debating against the younger Republican woman. And that is a different dynamic, particularly in these times where xenophobia is now welcomed into the open by the presidency of Donald Trump. The racist right wingers are more willing than ever to say the things that they were probably always thinking, etc. I am interested in what the sort of sidebar around the debate, what is going to be the right wing coverage? How are they going to deal with Kamala Harris? If Birther 2.0 is any sign, the early questions about is Kamala Harris actually eligible to be VP, it could get very, very ugly with a woman of color on the Democratic side debating evangelical white Republican Mike Pence. That's in September. Actually, no, I believe that the VP debate is not even until October. So we have some time unless it gets canceled. But I think that's going to be interesting. But should Trump replace Pence? Probably not. Probably not.